Hello everyone, welcome back. We are on part 6 of 7 of the 7 pieces of true healing, and I'm in the middle of a rainstorm, so it's like really loud behind me, and I hope that you can hear me, and if you're like, why is she yelling at me? That's why. So, I have had so much fun sharing this series with you all so far, and I have so appreciated and loved all of the engagement and all of the feedback and the private messages and the insights and the ahas and the magic that happens when we share and when we let ourselves be seen and can kind of be a little vulnerable. Like yesterday there was a lot of sharing about hypothyroidism, hey Millie, and different physical health challenges, and I imagine it was very refreshing for others to be like, oh, this resonates with me, I have this, and for other people to kind of come out of the shadows and yes, me too. And that's part of this whole process. That's part of true healing is, embracing your humanness and letting yourself be seen and held. So thank you all so much for participating so far. Like I said, we're on day 6, today's piece and tomorrow's piece, and that'll be all 7 of them. And if you have missed anything so far, they will live on the Facebook wall in this group for forever, so I highly recommend that you go check them out. Just to briefly recap, we covered the first piece was deep and whole embodiment, and that will always be the starting foundation for everything. I discussed how to be truly embodied. It's kind of a buzzword, and I kind of broke it down and what that really means, what that looks like. I discussed kind of what causes us to become disconnected from our bodies and ways that we can reconnect. And I shared a lovely guided meditation for us to communicate with a body part and to harvest wisdom, because the body will always speak truth. And so ways that we can use these vessels as the sacred teachers and translators and vehicles that they are. So that was piece 1. Piece 2 was creativity and sacred sexuality and embracing those things. And we explored how they're linked, and the biggest killer of creativity and your vital primal life force, spoiler alert, it is shame. So go check that out. I also discussed how to allow yourself to receive pleasure, how to know what is truly pleasurable to you without that skewed perception of sexuality and these other kind of wounds that are in the collective, coming back to a place of embodied curiosity and innocence around creativity and what is pleasure and the importance of that in true healing. And I shared an ancient mudra, which is like yoga for your hands, if you don't know what that is, to support receptivity and lunar energy. Piece 3 was exercising your personal power, and we explored what true power actually means. So not this more brute force, willpower, kind of beat everything into submission, bypass symptoms, and just like push forward flavor of power that we've kind of been taught. We discussed what true power is, how to step into your true power, how to step into your role as creator or creatress of your experience and take your power back. And from there, create the change and the physical experience of your life that you truly desire on all levels. So in your body, your health, your relationships, your work, your purpose, stepping into personal power and radical self-responsibility. And I shared a breath exercise to more deeply connect with personal power. Piece 4 was unconditional love and self-acceptance, and how, whether we like it or not, we need to fully 1000% love and accept and honor and forgive ourselves just as we are right here and now. And that includes every single step along our journey that has gotten us to right here and right now, if we're ever going to create sustainable and lasting change in the future. Period. So that was a lovely session. I shared a vulnerable story, and I also gave a really powerful exercise to deepen into self-love. It is not something that we could have done on Facebook together because I would have been put in Facebook jail for nudity. Yes, so go check out that exercise. Piece 5 was compassionate self-expression. And we discussed how expression can be thought of as detoxification for the subtle realms of your being, and the links to withholding and hypothyroidism especially, as well as other physical challenges that can arise when we're withholding our truth. And I shared the notion that everything that has ever longed to be expressed that you have held back still lives inside of you, still is there, still is energy that is longing to be moved in some capacity. And because it's there, it's alive, and you're holding it down, it's leaching vital life force from your system. And also how not sharing is you denying somebody else a gift as well as yourself a gift. So that was a great session. I shared another fabulous breath exercise. And today we're on to the sixth piece of true healing, which is strengthening your intuition. And before I get into this, I love this topic. I really do. I love all of these. I think I say that in all of these sessions because I do. I love all of them, and they're all so necessary, and they all seamlessly flow together in this kind of spiral fashion. They're not in any particular order. It's not like, oh, I checked this thing off. I've accepted myself, so now I'm going to move on to the next piece. It's yes, and it's a constant evolution, and it's a constant spiral. I mean, I really resonate with that imagery. That's kind of how the journey of life is. That's how the holing process is, the healing process. It is, you go forward, you meet something new or a different shade of the thing that you had been working with, and it challenges your ability to exercise self-love. So you're kind of working on that piece. That's what is being challenged at that point. Or maybe you're like really rocking the self-expression piece, and there's some pieces around intuition that need to be strengthened. So it's about coming into a fluid relationship with your needs and really witnessing yourself. True healing is about working with our challenges. It's about working with our symptoms and our traumas and our grief and our pain points. It's about getting really cozy with them. It's not about pacifying symptoms. It's not about bypassing challenges and trying to get to like the next good thing or the next pretty thing or the next thing that is pleasing at the expense of ignoring what is painful. It's about really being with those things and harvesting the wisdom and the messages from those things, and recognizing that challenges and traumas, traumatic events, anything in that category is a sacred teacher, and it's an initiation and an invitation. And so true healing comes when we are able to embrace those things and be with them. That which we resist simply intensifies. So when we're fixating on the surface challenge and not understanding its deeper cause and not utilizing all of these pieces, all of these resources, it's going to keep magnifying, and it's going to keep persisting. That's why those surface fixes haven't worked. That's why, diet hopping and hopping on the next exercise fad or the next self-care trend, all of these things are just us perpetually running from the thing that really needs our attention. And it's us trying to fill the void when it's not actually a void. There's like this whole pool and whole well of gifts and magic. It's just to get there, sometimes it feels a little friggin' uncomfortable. You got to go through the shit to get to the pearl, the diamond. It's so cliche and it's so true. The diamond it's like pressured and it has to go through all this stuff, and then it's like this beautiful diamond, right? So it wasn't just born a diamond, it had to become a diamond. True healing is about understanding that the subtle always creates the gross. And if you followed me for like even a second, you know that that will be tattooed on my forehead and put on my gravestone That is the kind of signature premise of everything that I believe and everything in my work, is the subtle creates the gross. What does this mean? It means that everything experienced on your gross, so gross as in like tangible physical existence, not gross like yucky, your gross physical experience, everything in your gross physical experience is created by your subtle, intangible aspects of your being. So those being your emotional, your mental, your energetic, your spiritual bodies, these more subtle, nuanced, behind the scenes, if you will, pieces of you that are creating the physical. They're just building blocks for your physical. So they dictate all of your decisions. They dictate the way in which you see the world and the relationships you have, everything. The laundry detergent that you buy, what you eat and don't eat, how you take care of your things, how you hold your body, how you move through your life, how you, oh my gosh, everything, how you breathe, how you speak, all of it. So the subtle always creates the gross, always. And this also includes your old beliefs and your undigested traumas, your unprocessed emotions, your habits, your patterns, and ancestral wounds. Ancestral wounds for sure. Because you are both physically and energetically made of those that came before you. The things that they experienced altered their physiology, and then they passed that on to you. And so you've got that nature aspect, right? Nature versus nurture. You've got the nature aspect where you're literally holding them, and the nurture aspect. So say that great grandma Agnes went through something traumatic that changed her character. So she then passed those traits down to everyone else who also had those traits, and so on and so on and so on. So you've got the nurture aspect. So everything, it's all there. And even these, yes, we can see in our kind of hyper physical science obsessed culture, we can see how, okay, I get how the nature aspect would influence like my physical health and my physical existence, but how would the nurture part? It does. If we think about the lens through which we're viewing the world and how that creates these false illusions of ourselves and these identities that we carry about ourselves, that shit is deep. It's so subconscious and so deep. So we have this illusion and this identity of ourself. And then that's going to dictate everything. It's going to dictate how good of care I take of myself or not. How I eat, how I sleep, how I do these things. If I have a story that, oh, I'm just doomed to be this thing, because life's going to be hard and it's going to suck and whatever. You're kind of going to be one of those people that's just going to accept things as they are and not really strive to make a change or even allow yourself to see that there is a different way. Or if you do, allow yourself to accept that way can exist for you. And so that adds to the physical kind of the physiology that you're also carrying. So it's like this double whammy creation of the gross experience from the subtle. It's fascinating and from all areas. And without further ado, we're going to see how that ties into true healing and strengthening one's intuition. So, that was an awesome segue, Devon. Pat myself on the back for that one. So, we can see how fixating on the surface really gets us nowhere. Except kind of more miserable. Yeah. So intuition. Strengthening our intuition. Do you consider yourself to be an intuitive person? I'm curious. I see there's a couple, that little eyeball icon freaks me out. I feel like it's like Big Brother's watching me or something. Just like eyeball and then a number. So I know that there are a few of you here And there might be more of us, right, in spirit, hanging out. If anybody would like to communicate with us, I'm curious about your thoughts on your own intuition and how your intuition speaks to you. So how do you receive the intuitive knowings? And for many of us, it is through our most sensitive physical sense. So again, this is where embodiment, that first piece of true healing, that most foundational piece of true healing, is really going to be vital. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Everything will start at this embodiment piece. So because you're in a human body, and it is your translator and your messenger and your vehicle while you're on Earth. It's kind of it's made of Earth, and you're on Earth right now, and we're perceiving and experiencing and receiving through our senses at all times to be engaged in this dance of, spirit and matter, matter and spirit, and we're just kind of these amazing midpoint where spirit and earth make love. So we get to just dance and be with it all. So that embodiment piece will always be the most important. So receiving intuitive information will always land in the body. Yay! There are people here. Millie, I find I don't know how to listen to my intuition when I'm making a decision. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that. That's coming. Because that is, that's like the topic of today's session. So that's beautiful self-awareness, and I love that that's where you are, and just allowing that to be. One eyeball. Alicia. So one eyeball. I love that. I'm curious about this. One eyeball. Vicky, I didn't used to think of myself as intuitive, but the past year has really taught me otherwise, but still very much learning how to receive the intuitive knowings. Exactly. Yes. Oh, this is beautiful. Did my intuition just tell me to create this talk for today for you guys because it's so perfect? Or perhaps I think there's just this rampant disconnection. It's like an epidemic. All right, so this is where we all are right now. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing and not just being eyeballs, engaging with me. I love it. Thank you. So, like I said, it will most likely, and not always, but it will most likely come to us through our most sensitive physical sense. And for me, it's my ears. That is my most sensitive sense. I actually keep these on my desk. They're for working, big brother eyeballs that are on your screen. Oh, God. Duh. Of course that's what you meant. Okay. Thank you, Alicia. Anyways, I feel like I need to go hide in a corner now. But yeah, for me, it's my ears, and I keep these on my desk, actually. They're for, if you're working on a runway or going to be in a shooting range, you, cannot hear anything. It's magical to me. So being aware of what your most sensitive physical sense is, because there is most of the time a connection to intuitive information that will present itself through that physical body part. And there might be other places in the body. For me too, it's also my stomach. It's also lovely to begin to play with how truth feels in your body and how untruths feel in your body. So when somebody is, and this is just something to start to play with, when somebody is speaking to you and you know they're speaking truth. So it can be as simple as, hi, my name is Devon, and I am sitting in my office right now speaking to you. That's truth. Hi, my name is Larry. I am wearing a purple dinosaur costume, and I am sitting in front of you physically right now. That has a little different energy. Yes, it's silly, but just beginning to play with, how does truth land in my body? And how does untruth land in my body? On the path of true healing and remembering and reclaiming, we'll be challenged. We'll challenge ourselves. We'll be challenged by others. We will challenge our own paradigms. We'll question outside influences. We'll question our path. We will question at times our entire existence, because essentially we're destroying the false illusions of ourselves and stepping into what is actually so for us and what we actually desire authentically. And this requires a strong connection to our intuitive knowing. Only you know what's best for you. Only you know what's best for you. And only you know what's true for you. There's nothing outside of you. Nothing. We can turn to resources and coaches and healers and mentors as guidance, right? Like an explorer who wants to climb Everest, they know they're going to Everest. They're ready, they're prepared, and there's still Sherpas exist for a reason. Yeah. So having that guidance to guide us back to ourselves, to be that mirror. And at the end of the day, you are you. You know what's best. You have everything right here, right now inside of you. At many points throughout our lives, however, this is where it can get tricky. We've been taught to deny our intuitions, and we've been told that what we actually knew and felt that was truth wasn't truth. A great example of this, say we grew up in dysfunctional households, and perhaps there was like drug or alcohol abuse or just something that was off. And it can also happen when friends or partners are betraying us and we feel it, or when healthcare providers are maybe prescribing some way of healing that doesn't feel right to us. Like, we're bombarded with messages about not trusting ourselves because we're perceiving and we know something, and yet we're being told, oh, everything's fine, this is normal, or like, no, this is the best way, trust me, I know better than you, I'm, a person of authority or power, whether that was our caretakers or a medical professional or whatever the case may be. Does that make sense? And do you guys have any experiences with that? I know for me, reconnecting with my intuition took a lot of work, and it's still this ever-evolving, deepening process. And I grew up in a house where there was drug and alcohol use, and it was very much kind of like hidden. And so I would see my mother, who was clearly under the influence, and I'm a little girl, and knew something was like, I haven't been on the earth that long, but I'm pretty sure that normal, healthy people don't act like that. And I would just be told, oh, she's tired. Mom's tired. I'm like, oh, but tired people don't act like that. So constantly being told, it might seem innocent, but being told that what you're experiencing is false, even though can be a big intuition and self-trust killer. Intuition is very much tied to self-trust. Very much so. So if you guys have any experiences, I'd love to hear them. To add on top of that, so our whole lives we've been taught that things outside of us have the answers. Like, you're broken or flawed, so go try this thing, go try this diet, go try this thing, go try this. That's not actually the right way, go try this thing. Or, no, you can't make a living doing that, that's crazy, go try this thing. So it's a self-trust and a confidence killer, which hurts our own internal relationship with self and our own internal North Star. I almost said North Compass. Our internal compass and our North Star. Yeah, the link between intuition and self-trust. Totally. It is interesting. And when we start to think about, like, okay, all the times in my life that I have been told to question, or maybe not straight up told, it's been suggested that I question myself or that I don't actually know what's best. It makes you question. And that every time, because it's all compounding, it stacks on top of itself. All things do. The subtle creates the gross. Every one of those little subtle comments or jabs or instances, they all just kind of slowly piled on top of itself, so that like decades later you're just like, should I go down this road or that road? Do I really feel this thing or do I feel that thing? Is this really what's best, or should I go ask somebody outside of me? Instead of trusting. I would actually pay someone to tell me what to do next every step of the way. That's how I don't trust myself. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. That's some truth. Yeah. And, sometimes, I'm not a brain surgeon, and, heaven forbid one day I might need brain surgery. I'm not gonna do it. Sometimes we need to go outside, or like I was saying about having those Sherpas in our lives, and at times to guide us back to ourselves. It's like a fine line. Yeah. So we have that piece. We live in a society that doesn't really applaud intuition or intuitive knowing. We value physical and proof and, scientific proof and evidence. And I love science, so I'm not bagging on it. I am such a science nerd. I have a master's degree. And I am also incredibly, I'm a medicine woman. I work with plant spirits. I talk to my trees. So that intuition and science need to live together. And I feel like we have strayed too far over here at the expense of these beautiful, subtle, intuitive knowings and working with innate things that simply cannot be explained. I was going to add something else. Oh, yeah, and we completely belittle and poo-poo any type of intuitive, innate knowing. So we've had that. To make it worse, so I feel something else that's really stacked on top of that. Hi, Renee. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. Something else that is stacked on top of that. So we've been told we're wrong, or we've been told what we perceive or know as truth is wrong. And it's actually this way. Or like I talked about yesterday in the compassionate self-expression session, with kind of accepting things as normal that aren't normal. We do that in our society. Like when we start talking about hypothyroidism, oh, you've got hypothyroidism? Well, that's, so many people do nowadays, especially women. It's just how it is. So accepting things as normal, even though we feel and know, no, this is not freaking normal. I don't want to feel this way. I know that there's something else. So I think I have exhausted that point. We get it. We've been taught and shown to deny what we know as truth, to not trust ourselves, and to ignore and bypass our intuitions. So we have that. On top of that, I feel, to make it all worse, I feel that right now all of us, especially women, but all of us, regardless of gender, are inflicted with this mother wound. And that's, another trendy topic. But it's true. There is shame and mistrust and repression around the feminine and feminine energies and spirally sensitive, subtle energies. And so as women, we take that harder, I think, than a man does. However, like I said, collectively, we are suffering with this right now. So as women, we're simply more attuned. We're more attuned to our bodies. I mean, these beautiful vessels are changing daily. We're lunar in nature. Grandmother Moon is in a new sign every 2.5 days. She is constantly changing, and that is us. So we are more attuned to our bodies. We are more attuned to the earth. We are more attuned to subtle energy in general and our intuitions, because we are more embodied. We are more, when things are changing and there's a lot more happening, we're automatically just more kind of tuned in. Whereas a man's body, man's physiology is more solar. It does pretty much the same thing every day, all day. And so they're more likely to be a little less embodied. There's less interesting stuff happening in their physiology and in their physical meat suit. So we are highly sensitive by nature. However, because of this systemic repression and oppression and denial of these sensitive, subtle, spirally, more intuitive ways, we on some level, whether overtly or deeply, deeply subconscious, like way in there, on a deep, deep cellular subconscious level, we don't fully trust ourselves or our bodies or our intuitive knowing. And I feel like that collective shame and oppression and repression and denial that I've talked about is within, and we give it to ourselves. Let me know if any of this is resonating. I mean, it's deep. So we have everything outside of us coming at us to say, oh, you're wrong. And then from within, because we're like, okay, the collective doesn't celebrate and honor this more spirally, subtle, sensitive, intuitive knowing. I am that and I'm not really wanted or celebrated out there. So then there's this resentment and shame that begins to build from the inside as well, which further adds to us not trusting ourselves, and which further adds to, I mean, let's look at these other 7 pieces of healing that we've discussed so far. It adds to us not feeling fully embodied or not desiring to feel fully embodied, because there is a resentment and a shame associated with being this sensitive, tuned in creature. So there's this like denial of our own essence, our own feminine essence, and our own ever-changing bodies. You know, our physical body is the physical representation of the very thing that we've been taught to deny. She is constantly changing and flowing and cycling and not the same thing any 2 days in a row. And we've been taught to mistrust that. So from that embodiment piece, we're very like, oh, resentment, like, ugh. From that self-love piece of true healing, we're like, and like I said, this is deep. So if you're sitting there like, no, Devon, like, honestly look at it. Because it might be there on some level, especially if you're experiencing any type of challenge, especially with trust and intuition and self-love. So with that self-love piece, there is this, but I've got all this shame and I am this thing that isn't celebrated. And you see where I'm going? And from the, what other pieces have we covered? Embodiment and creativity and sexuality. Oh my gosh. We can see how from that angle, receiving pleasure and knowing what is pleasurable, there is a resentment towards our very nature. So that's where the whole I'm not worthy of this, or I don't deserve, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, and I see Alicia and Renee, that resonates. And Vicky, I missed your comment from earlier. A friend recently coached an intuition workshop where we were asked to read complete strangers placed in front of us. And while I felt I was completely making it up, I just settled into the experience and listened to what was coming up for me, and it was surprisingly accurate, down to determining that someone played the cello and worked with flowers. Found it mind-blowing that I could read strangers like that, but not have enough insight into myself to figure out what is right for me regarding next steps. Yeah. And you do have that ability. There's this rampant suppression and disconnection that has occurred in our lifetime and before. So when I talked about like ancestral traumas and ancestral woundings, these are things that our mothers and our grandmothers and great-grandmothers and the men as well have carried and kind of brought through. So shit's deep. And you do have that ability for yourself. You totally do. We all do. So embodiment, that's where that piece is super important. That is the way to re-enter this vessel with love and with compassion and with witnessing. And that's where the entire reclamation process begins. And that like loving and honoring and accepting exactly where you are right here and now. I love that practice I gave in the self-love session. That's a very powerful one. So reconnecting to your intuition, I would say that some of these other pieces that we've discussed need to really be being practiced simultaneously. Like I've been saying this whole time throughout this series, this is a cohesive system, a cohesive, holistic, collective system of pieces that are making this pie with 7 pieces of true healing in your healing pie. And they all need to be looked at together. They all need to come together. And Millie's saying to Vicky, same for me, I'm very intuitive about people and art psychotherapist. Awesome. And yet when it comes to my own personal decisions, I'm really not good. Yeah. And I've experienced this exact same thing as well. All of this entire series and all of my work is kind of created and alchemized from my own experiences and from my own journey. And I'm always offering the medicine that I need the most. I think that's the case for any good and true healer or person who's offering guidance. If they're really doing their work and it's going to be authentic, it's coming from their own. So these are all things from my journey, and I have definitely struggled with, like, I can guide you all day long, and then sometimes for me it's like, ooh, should it be this or that? And I'll just like have to like sit with it. And when we really get real and really embodied and feel into like, okay, so you got the 2 things. Let's just say you've got two ways that you could go. Really coming into your body, dropping in, closing the eyes, maybe putting your earmuffs on if you have them, closing off the physical senses to really get inside, and sitting with option A and option B. And each one has its own frequency, has its own, you have already, because our brains are so fantastically phenomenal, you have already weighed out and created all the pros and the cons and the hypotheticals and all the things for each one. Like in a snapshot, you've already made that judgment. Just in the same way, or maybe not judgment, assessment. Just in the same way that you're able to make that assessment so accurately about this stranger in front of you, Vicky. You've already done the same thing for these 2 options. And so really just feeling into, how does this one make me feel? How does this one make me feel? In the body. What are the sensations? What am I experiencing? Because you already know where to go. So some other questions I wanted to ask, because I'm like the question queen. I always end these things with questions and some exercises. And I've got a couple of exercises today that I would love to get into. I'd love to invite you to pick at least one and play with it over the next couple of days. But for questions to sit with, and please feel free to answer now or meditate on them and come back and answer later. I think we've kind of covered this one already, but how does your intuition speak to you? So really getting clear and feeling into, does my most sensitive sense have something to do with it? Like, am I receiving, do I see things very clearly, or do I hear things? Mine is, it might sound crazy, I really hear things and get messages through songs and music. Yes. So there's that piece. That's how it shows up. And also in my gut, like I said. Like I literally get gut feelings. My stomach is very sensitive. And it's also fascinating because physically she's very sensitive. I've got very sensitive, finicky digestion. I have ever since I was a little girl. And that's also where I receive my intuitive, embodied sensation whenever I'm working with a client, or if I am grappling with my own choices or my own intuition. So how does your intuition speak to you? And do you honor your intuitive knowing? Is it more of a problem? So when I hear you say, for those of you that have shared, when I hear you say, I don't trust my intuition, or I don't know if my intuition is speaking to me, I would invite you to consider, is it more that you're simply not honoring your intuitive knowing? And is it that self-trust piece that's actually the challenge? So another way to ask it, are you receiving the intuitive knowing? And is it a matter of like, ooh, but I don't know, that can't be right, I don't trust myself, I don't know. So is it the self-trust piece, and is the intuition actually like doing her thing and advising you and being all intuitive? So spending some time thinking about that. Do you spend time strengthening your intuition? And I'm going to get into a couple of exercises before I close on how to strengthen. And how can you live more intuitively? And that's another area to think about. Is it really my intuition, or is it self-trust? Okay. And Millie says, this is a challenge, but I don't think we do always know which way or that there is a best way. I don't think we always know which way or that there is a best way. Well, I mean, maybe that was a poor use of words from my end. I think I might argue that we do know what is best right now for me. I have a decision to make, and I do, when I feel into it, know what is the best thing for me to do right now. What would best serve me and my needs right now? Which decision, which road feels the best? Knowing I can't control outcomes, knowing that I can't see like the future, and I trust my ability to assess, I trust my ability to feel into my needs, and I trust that the answer for what is best right now will come through. Ignore fear influencing that knowing. Yes. I get messages through advertising, billboards, or wording on vans. Millie, are you being sarcastic? Or is that actually, like, does that influence your intuitive knowing? Because I get messages through advertising too. They try to tell me that I need to get this crazy perfume, and perfume commercials are crazy. They piss me off. I don't understand what they're trying to do. Anyway. Alicia, maybe we know, but we don't trust that we know is right because we aren't trusting ourselves. Alicia, I think you said that before I said that. We're on the same page. Yes. So see, it's been said twice, so it's true. Self-trust sometimes for me, Renee. Yes. So that is like beautiful awareness for all of us. Our intuition is, she's on and popping. And then we have this other inner voice that's like, but no, I don't know. That can't be right. Hey, Allie Jane, thank you for being here. And Millie, no, I do. Okay. Awesome. Renee, signs. Yes. Totally looking for signs. And that is going to tie in perfectly. It's an awesome segue for my intuitive strengthening exercises I wanted to share. I was looking for shoes for a wedding, and one pair is called Millie, so that was the decision I made. That's awesome. That's cool. And I assume, I don't want to assume, it makes an ass of you and me, haha. I imagine that perhaps maybe you liked those shoes already a little bit. I know for me, when I receive through songs, it's like reiterating and reaffirming what I really, really, really already felt and knew and wasn't trusting or didn't want to accept. Because sometimes, and this is where when I was speaking earlier about we will be challenged, we will challenge ourselves, we will challenge everything when we are really stepping into and embracing our real journeys and stepping into true whole healing, holing, is it's not always how we may want it to go. because it goes against everything that we have already built, everything that is already safe. Even though it might be crappy, it's not what we want, it's safe and it's familiar. So when we really start to open up this channel of communication and really start to trust that what we are receiving inside is truth and is in our highest good, sometimes that can feel scary, because it might mean like, okay, for my highest good, for my life's healing, and to deepen into my purpose and the nourishment that I want, that might mean, you know, letting go of some relationships. It might mean letting go of a job or some other type of safety thing. And we already, like, we know. Part of ignoring that and resisting that is what's creating the challenges in the first place. So, are you ready for some exercises? Woohoo! So I've shared a variety of practices throughout this series to really deepen into each of the teachings. There's been guided meditations, there have been breath work practices, there have been mudras, and that mirror exercise in the self-love and acceptance video was awesome. And so today I wanted to kind of offer a couple, because I couldn't pick just one, because why pick just one? So I wanted to share a few. Play with one that resonates, because you'll hear one and there will be a little bit of like a, ooh, I like that, or like there will be something. So follow that and really commit to playing with it. Not just like, oh, this was a good idea, I like Devon's videos, this has been fun, and then like go about your life. No, like just play, really let yourself. So the first one is a dream journal. And if you do or have done any of these, like I would love to hear about your experience. So the first one is a dream journal. Our dreams are, and this could be a whole other topic for a whole other time. Our dreams are such amazing, potent messengers. All of that stuff that is like way back there, like deep in that subconscious. And all of the stuff that you're grappling with and decisions that have to be made, or when you are deepening into your own journey and stepping onto the path of true healing and holing, and are digging deeper into understanding the subtle roots, the subtle causes of your gross, tangible challenges. Dreams. And when we journal them and really pay attention to them, and journaling them, like recording them in some manner, is the most important thing, because you'll start to pick out themes. You'll start to see patterns. You'll start to also become really good at interpreting them, because you'll start to see like, okay, this is how my internal dreamscape looks like. Okay, I can't get past this. Do you have hawks or some birds? Am I just hearing things? I have the window open, and that's not a hawk, is that a blue jay?
No, it's a blue jay.
But yeah, I do have hawks. They come and visit me and leave me feathers, and that's not a hawk. I apologize if that's distracting. So dream journals. And each thing that I love dream interpretation, but each thing, now all I hear is the damn bird. Thanks, Alicia. Each symbol in a dream carries its own medicine and carries its own teaching, and dream interpretation is a beautiful whole other field on its own. So beginning to play with what messages are there for you, what themes, what patterns, and recording it is a beautiful way to strengthen intuition, deepen into self-trust, and deepening into self-trust because you are like clearly unfilteredly experiencing what you are really, really needing and wanting and feeling and thinking. So dream journals. Automatic writing, another fantastic practice. So I shared, it was in our group, it was a few weeks ago, there was a prompt I shared for strengthening the intuition that was an automatic writing exercise. And so there's really no right way or wrong way to get into this practice. I love to come into meditation and get very centered and clear and embodied and in a place I won't be disturbed. I will probably have my earmuffs on, and I will have my journal and my pen ready, or whatever writing materials that you really love. I really invite you to write. There's something about the hand and versus typing. If you must type. This is your magic that you're playing with. So getting very clear, very still, very centered, and asking a question. You know, is it path A or path B that I am meant to embark upon right now, that I most need to do? Is it these shoes or Millie shoes that I most need to wear? Whatever it is, ask a question and just let yourself drop out of here and get into here. And, you know, doing something before, if meditation or coming into that stillness isn't quite enough to like jolt you out of here and get you more into here, dancing is fantastic. Something that gets you very flowy and embodied. You can walk around in circles. It's a shamanic practice, becoming the hollow bone. So walking around in circles, put on some wordless music. So just getting very here, very in the body. Ask your question right away. And just don't think, don't stop until you know that you're done writing. And then read what came out. Very telling. Playing with oracle cards of some kind or a tarot deck. That's, and again, another one of those practices that help us to really, really see what we already knew. Because we will receive a message from the cards or from runes or whatever other thing like that you like to play with, and we already knew, and that gives us that extra like, okay, yes. And it might reveal something else that is in there, some other conflict or the root of a conflict, or why you're struggling with this in the first place, or a whole other outcome that you hadn't thought of. So beautiful practice. I love my cards. I have lots of them. They're over there, pointing like you can see me. Meditating. And again, I talked a lot about this in my podcast series. I just wrapped up a series about the chakras, and I talked about how each one can be deficient or overactive. And so if you're somebody that is by nature a little bit more up here, a little bit more spacey, maybe a little bit more in the clouds, a little bit more mental body, a little more just up here, perhaps your intuitive strengthening is going to be more focused on embodiment, dropping the energy down. So that's where dancing and self-massage or meditating, but using it as a way to track sensation in the body and to get really embodied. So like meditating on the body. And that's where the practice from the embodiment session, the first piece of true healing, can be very helpful. On the contrary, if you're somebody who's more like lower, not lower energy, like bad energy, just more in those lower energy centers, and you're typically more embodied, and it's a little difficult to be more mercurial or more ethereal, that's where something like a traditional meditation practice can come into play. And that's just where it really depends on you and knowing yourself and knowing what is most needed for you. I fall into the camp where I need more embodiment. I am very just kind of like up here naturally, so dropping it down. Yeah. That's one that's like a non-negotiable for all levels, not just for strengthening intuition, for soothing our nervous system, for anything. Always we need that medicine. So knowing which camp you fall into and feeding that to yourself daily, making that a daily practice is like, needs to happen. And lastly, and I didn't know that Millie, if she's still here, was an art psychotherapist. I love it. I was going to discuss expressive arts therapy because that can be a phenomenal way of communicating with our subtle realms and extracting and harvesting wisdom and information from within. You can use it as a tool to deepen your embodiment and your communication with your physical body. So creating images of sensations or of feelings or of decisions or of, I mean, really anything. And there's so much wisdom to harvest from there. It's just another entry point, like the dream journal, and really seeing what's happening on those subtle realms when you're fast asleep. The expressive arts therapy is another entry point into what's happening on those subtle realms. I love playing with it as an embodiment practice to help me deepen into my embodied wisdom. So I will do a practice very similar to the one I shared in the embodiment session for piece 1, and I'll pick a body part and communicate with her and create an image, and then I will move with that image in response. We'll have a little conversation, and there's some really, really profound shit that'll come through. And I am not an artist by any means. I am no, Picasso or Van Gogh. Maybe a little more Picasso. And again, that's not the point. It's just like with the writing. Let yourself express. And if you're having trouble with that, go watch session 2 with creativity and sexuality. Allow yourself to just release it. It's just like the expression piece too. Allow that detoxification for your subtle bodies to come out. I actually have I love playing with oil pastels. You can do anything. There are colored pencils. And Millie, feel free, girl. This is your area of expertise. Chime in. I'm just very passionate about this practice because it has been so healing and beneficial for me and for lots of my clients. But like, okay, this was a piece I did a few weeks ago. It's not, it looks like a little kid could have done it, and I don't care because it was this one in particular was incredibly profound and powerful experience. I was having some old grief surface around my mother who passed in September, and that was a great image. And then I'll take myself through the little writing exercises on the back, and it's like, wow, so much insight and wisdom came through that was right at the surface that maybe I was suppressing or not trusting to come through. So that was a lot of stuff I just threw at you. Dream journal, automatic writing, oracle cards, a daily meditation / embodiment practice, and or expressive arts therapy. Is there anything in that menu that is resonating with you more than another that you can commit to playing with? I'm just going to sit here and stare at you. Thank you, Millie. Flowering. Yes. That was something that came through with that. It was definitely a blossoming forth. Renee, cool. You already do a few of those. Amazing. Alicia's going to start a dream journal. Sweet. Renee, do you care to share what your favorite is, or maybe one that is serving you right now more than another? Vicky really wants to try oracle cards, but also wants to commit to meditation more. Yeah, and I think, for any practice, you find something that resonates and that feels really good, and you're going to show up for it more. So finding a style of meditation, and also knowing that it may change. So a style that works for now, a year from now, might not serve anymore. So it's all about staying very fluid and aware and trusting that. So Vicky, I honor and I hear that you're gonna try some oracle cards and also commit to meditation more. Do you have a practice of meditation that you are resonating with right now? And there are so many cards to choose from. So you will definitely find something that you love that resonates. I recently found some plant oracle cards. I don't know why that was difficult to get out. And as many of you know, I work with herbs. I work with plant spirit medicine and flower essences. So it was awesome. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I love those. And Millie just had a realization. I love it. The fear around making the wrong decision is the key, I think, and the issue that needs healing. I hadn't seen that before. Yes. That was just like somebody else's insight in one of these videos where I offered that there was resistance to continuing to evolution, continuing to evolve. And I offered that it wasn't, there was resistance to situations that kept bringing growth. And I offered that it wasn't the situation, it was the resistance to the growth. And the fear around making the wrong decision is the key. Yeah. That's awesome. Let's all sit with that for a second, because I imagine that rings true for many of us. It's not that there's decisions, like there's always decisions. It's that we might make the wrong one. But then it's like, what does that even mean? I think that is tied, I know for me, tied into this. I have which I'm sure we all can relate on some level. I've got a lovely old I'm not enough story. I'm not doing it right enough. I'm not enough. And so I've definitely seen that around decisions. Like, this decision won't get me to be enough. I won't be enough if I pick this. I got to pick the thing that's going to get me to be enough, doing enough, showing up enough, whatever the enough piece is. And as I've shared before too, I firmly believe that the root of all of our suffering, the root of all of our challenges and all of our stories is a flavor of the "there's something wrong with me" story. Everything goes back to this "there's something wrong with me." And so I'll pick the wrong thing. I'm not enough. I have Whispers of Love cards. Ooh, I haven't heard of those. Those sound lovely. I just got a little flicker in my belly. Like, I think I might want to look at those. And Vicky, no, and I think that's the problem with meditation. Want to love it, and sometimes it's wonderful, but most of the time I struggle hearing you on finding what works for me. Yeah. I think that might also be, in my experience at least, there was the, like, am I doing it right? And there were expectations around the practice versus kind of, like, I don't actually have to do anything. I am being with this practice, and I'm kind of letting it do me. I'm showing up and letting it do me, and all I have to do is just show up and surrender to the tides within. There's no right or wrong. There's nothing that I can screw up. And yes, there are so many different styles. I am particularly drawn to Kundalini yoga and meditation and breath work. So I just offer that as maybe something to explore. And there are so many different styles. Fear of making mistakes, but mistakes create growth, so it helps for me to change my perspective about mistakes. I like that, Renee. Yeah. Mistakes, that's like another one of those. I get really kind of peeved when I hear people call plants weeds. So I'm like, that's a matter of perspective. what's a weed to you is like medicine to me. And when we start to put labels on things, they automatically take on the power of the label. Anything that we label takes on this whole identity and this whole connotation and this whole power of a label. So when we say mistake, or I'm scared of a mistake, we get this whole like, oh, there's this physiological response, our nervous system is primed, our body is primed, and we have like 5,000 different stories going on in our heads, and it blocks the self-trust and it blocks the clear channel of intuitive flowing and knowing. Because every single choice, every single step in life is an opportunity. There's really no wrong one. No right and wrong and all these labels. Everything is an opportunity. I was pretty nervous to share this whole series. And I knew that it was here, it had to come through. And I had this idea, and I wasn't going to stifle my truth and my expressions. And I just saw Millie's comment, and it made me want to read it. Tired of listening to myself, I want to hear you guys. But what was I saying? Allowing it to come through. I lost that thought. Maybe it'll come back. Thing is being tuned into one's intuition implies that one wouldn't take a path that may afterwards be considered a mistake. Thank you, Vicky. Thing is being tuned into one's intuition implies that one wouldn't take a path that may afterwards be considered a mistake. Not necessarily. I think that goes back to labels and what is a mistake, or could a mistake even possibly exist? I think the only time we could ever make a mistake is if we like willfully and completely ignored everything we knew that was right for us. I quit drinking, like 4.5 years ago now. Yeah. I know that alcohol and I do not get along. So if I were to willfully ignore that and go drink, like against everything that I don't even want to, it just sounds disgusting. And let's just say I went and drank, like that is against everything that I know to be true for me. So that's ignoring my intuition, my common sense, my all of it. So I don't think, and that would be a mistake. It would be willfully disobeying everything that I know to be true and right for Devon. If one is living intuitively, one might never make a mistake, basically. Right. Are we saying the same things? I need to get, like, I have Zoom, and I'm planning something coming up. It would be so much fun to speak in live time without the lag of comments. Millie, I think you and I are saying the exact same thing. And Renee, about the perspective change of mistake, yes. Amen, sister. So I think we're all saying the same thing. Okay. Is there anything else that is desiring to come through or be shared before I close for today? There's one final piece left. Tomorrow, the solstice, we will close this lovely series. I've had so much fun. And I hope that you'll play with some of these practices that we talked about today. I hope that you'll watch the replays if you haven't, and that you'll continue sharing any insight or questions or feedback or anything, any needs, any other thoughts. This one has been super fun. I've loved all of the insights and the sharing, and I could just keep going all day long like this. These are the kinds of conversations that really feed my soul and nourish me. All right. Well, thank you all so much. So much. Mwah. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you tomorrow for the final piece. I can't wait. Be well.